What's up, sisters and friends? Happy Monday, everybody. Y'all, I'm so excited to get this week going. So many good things, and this is going to be such a unique podcast. I haven't done a podcast by myself in a long time. A while back, literally years ago, I did a live recording, and I kind of shared this message, and so that was, a moment that I did a podcast solo, but it's been a long time, and I'm so excited to kind of jump back into that. For those of you who don't know, and probably most of you don't know, because I don't know that I've ever shared this publicly, but about once a month locally where I live, I lead this Bible study on a Monday night, and it's been something that's been so good for me and my family to be plugged into this Bible study group, and I lead about once a month at it. And I preached this message last week at our little local group, and actually I had shared a little bit on the podcast with Louise and Brittany about the power of being planted and how, sometimes the very place where that looks like death is the beginning of destiny. And I talked about that Mike Todd video that I learned that from, and just that, when you are planted, you have to be buried. That's part of the process. And so I actually preached an entire message on that at this Bible study, and I wanted to share that with you guys. And so before I go into that, I had to also point out the obvious that I've been sharing so much on socials that I got to host the K-Love Fan Awards, which was an absolute joy. It was so much fun. We had the best weekend ever. Even just getting to experience that with my family and some of my closest friends was so unbelievably special. Hosting is something that I absolutely love to do, hence the fact that I've had a podcast for 5.5 years. And so getting to host in that capacity was so fun at the Grand Ole Opry of all places. But we had some pretty funny memories along the way, and crazy, like literally crazy memories. Actually, there was a giant hailstorm right before the event, and all of our friends, I'm talking literally all of our friends that came, cars are totaled. So thank God I have really positive friends who still made the most of it. I remember Bella was like, well, look, how often is it that, all your cars go through something like this together? At least we're together. And so everyone was trying to make the most of a pretty unfortunate situation. And then we got to be, in a room of people just worshiping God, cheering on the church. So that definitely made everyone's spirits come alive. And we had the girls with us there. Honey and Haven sat in my dressing room the whole time, and Haven slept most of the show. Honey watched Little Bear and occasionally looked up at me on the screen, and just had a great time. And we did a pizza party after, which was so much fun. But this is funny. So we were trying to find a place in Nashville that was open late enough. You would think there'd be a lot more options, but there were not. And then we finally found one. We're like, oh, this is open till 2 a.m. Perfect. And so I sent some of the girls on my LO team to go pick up the pizza, and I accidentally ordered this. Well, my teammate ordered it from Broadway. So they were straight up on Broadway at like 10:30 picking up pizza, and they were like at this bar. I was like, whoops, sorry guys. And then they were leaving the place and got pulled over by the cops because they couldn't figure out their rental car lights. So we had some pretty funny, crazy memories. As always, we had a lot of good laughs in the weekend. And actually, I just hired a new social media team that's helping me out with my socials. So if you guys have seen, I've been much more active on socials. It was so fun. They came, and I was telling them, I'm not really much of an influencer. They had so many reels and TikToks for me to do, and I was like, y'all, we're just gonna have fun with this. We laughed so much. One of the girls was like, Sadie, let's do a what's in your bag TikTok. And I was like, I don't know if I'm like the what's in your bag girl. And she's like, let's just do it. It'll just be fun. And so I did not look in my bag. I did not look in my bag before I did this. I was just like, okay, let's just see what happens. First thing I pulled out was a scorpion sucker. Y'all, I straight up had a sucker with a scorpion in it from the airport convenience store. That was hilarious. Then I go on to pull out 2 pairs of kids' socks, a bow. I had my little makeup bag, and then I opened the makeup bag, and there was a rattle in it, like a little Haven's little rattle. I had Honey's ultrasound pictures from 2021. Like what? How? Why? I had my whole skincare routine printed out. It was the funniest thing. I was like, I told y'all I'm not a what's in your bag girl. They're like, you're the perfect what's in your bag girl. That was hilarious. And so maybe not aesthetic, but very funny nonetheless. So we had a lot of just funny moments as friends and family, as a team, but most importantly, just getting to glorify God in a space where people are all putting forth the work that they do to further His kingdom was just so impactful. And I have to tell y'all, because it's already aired now, so I can say this, that Well That's Good was nominated for a podcast award, and we won, guys! Woo, y'all, it was so exciting. And so I just want to say a huge thank you. Thank you so much. What in the world? It is such a true honor to even be nominated for a podcast impact award. That is a huge honor to even be in the running for that, to be thought of for that. Because the other nominees are podcasts that genuinely I listen to every day. I listen to Back Porch Theology just about every day when I'm doing my makeup, and it's helped me grow so much spiritually. And so to think that you guys are listening to this podcast in that same context is just incredibly humbling to me. It's absolutely amazing. And so then to win and know that you guys voted just means the world. Y'all are the best listeners and fam out there. I wish I could hug all of you, high five all of you, because podcasting is definitely a team thing. And more than that, it's a together thing. This is for all of us. And so thank you for that. It is just amazing. I actually got a text from David Platt, a pastor friend of mine, who sent me a picture of a girl getting baptized and said that she was getting baptized. She heard about Jesus from this podcast. And so even if you're listening, to know that this podcast is having that kind of impact means the entire world. And it makes me want to just keep going for years and years to come. This is just to me, one of the most important things I've been able to be a part of. And so thank you for that. We got another K-Love Award to put up. We should probably put it in the studio just to give honor where it's due for all the fans and all you guys listening and voting for that. So thank you very, very much. So like I said, I'm going to talk to us today about this idea of the power of being planted. So I'm actually going to get out my Bible. We are going to read the word, and we are going to jump into this message that I preached last week at a local Bible study. Now, I do have it all written on notes, so I'm going to be reading from my laptop, which again is just different for this podcast, but I think that the things that the Lord put on my heart for this message is really important for us to hear. And so first, let's just dive into the word, guys. We're going to be reading in Psalms 1, verses 1 through 4. Now, if you haven't read Psalms 1 through 4 in a hot second, then I encourage you to turn the volume up and listen to this verse, because this has been such a pivotal verse for me in my life. It's been something that Christian and I have had as a verse for our marriage. It's been something that I have put into different aspects in my life, with work, with life, with everything, with really just who I am. And so I'm excited to read this today. So Psalms 1 through 4 says this: "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by a stream of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but they are like chaff that the wind drives away." So that is such a rich verse. We're going to dive into all of that it has for us. But first, even I just want to point out this idea, because I love how it starts. "But blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of the sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scoffers." And I love just the process that it represents. It's okay, I'm walking, with the sinners. It's kind of I'm casually just hanging out with the sinners. I'm casually just hanging out with the wicked, with the things not of the Lord. It's kind of this casual thing. And then it says, "nor stands in the way of the sinners." So now it's okay, I'm not just walking. It's not just casual. I'm actually kind of standing here. I'm kind of planning myself to be a part of it. And then it goes even further, "nor sits in the seat of the scoffers." So it's kind of this casual, slow fade of man, I'm hanging with the sinners, I'm standing with the sinners, I'm sitting with the sinner, now I'm planted in this space. And then it gives this completely contrasted person who's actually delight is in the law of the Lord, who's constantly meditating, who's constantly focusing on the things of the Lord, not the things of the wicked, not the things of the sinners. And then it talks about being planted in that space. So it's kind of giving this idea of like, don't settle in the space of the wicked, settle in the meditation on the word of God. And so I love this verse. We're going to dive into it even more. But now I'm going to open up my laptop and we are going to go into this message called The Power of Being Planted. As all of you know, my faith is definitely the most important thing to my life. Becoming closer to Jesus and reading my Bible has helped me overcome some seriously hard things in life. I really couldn't imagine not having the Bible in my life, and that is why I'm so excited to partner with Crew. Crew has missionaries all over the world sharing the Word of God in almost every country, which is so amazing. But what many people are missing is one important thing, a Bible in their own language, and that's where we can help, friends. For only $24 a month, you can provide 3 people with Bibles each and every month. And when you sign up to provide 3 Bibles with a monthly gift of $24, as a thank you, Crew will provide meals to 12 hungry individuals through their humanitarian aid ministry, which is an amazing gift. Plus, you'll also receive a gift from us. Christian and I are going to send you a How to Put Love First book. If you don't know about our 90-day devotional, it's just that, a 90-day devotional about putting God first in your life. I think you guys are going to love it and be challenged by it. Tons of you have already given to Crew, and I just want to say thank you so much for that. But Crew is also needing more Bibles and prayers too. So simply text GOOD to 71326 to help today. And just imagine how much this monthly gift could change someone's life. By texting GOOD to 71326, that's GOOD, GOOD, to 71326 to help now, or visit give.cru.org/good. Message and data rates may apply, available to U.S. addresses only. Now, before I even go into this, I just want to point something out that I didn't even say in the message, is that there is power in being planted either way that you're planted. There is power in being planted in the things that are wicked and not of God, and that can be a powerful way to destruction. That can be a powerful grip on your life, but there is also incredible power in being planted in the things of God. So wherever you're planted, just know, you might just think, oh, it's just casual, I'm just chilling. No, wherever you plant, wherever you, make your mark, it's having power one way or the other, and let's hope that it's for good reason. So now let's hop into this message. So I don't know if you know this, but people have actually called the millennial generation the job hopping generation. So these are some stats from Gallup.com. It says that 21% of millennials say that they have switched jobs within the past year. It's pretty crazy, making them 3 times more than any other generation. So this is 3 times more than any other generation is saying they've switched jobs even in this past year. Not to mention, this is pretty crazy, that the millennial turnover cost has actually cost the U.S. economy $30.5 billion annually because of how flaky, I guess you could call the millennial generation, about how unplanted they are, about how they're just so quick to jump to the next job, to the next job, to the next job, and thinking nothing about it, thinking that, they're just trying to find their thing, but actually it's really costing a lot of money on the back end, because when you're not planting yourself somewhere, it does have even powerful effect on those around you. So let's go on to a little bit more statistics. There are many potential reasons for this, but one of it could be their low engagement in the workspace. This is very interesting. Gallup found that 29% of millennials are engaged in their workspace, which that means that only 3 in 10 are emotionally or even behaviorally connected to their job. Another 16% are actively disengaged, which that's shocking, kind of scary, meaning that they are literally out to damage their company. But most millennials, 55%, are just simply not engaged. It is possible, however, that many millennials don't want to switch jobs, but their companies are not giving them compelling reasons to stay. When millennials see what appears to be a better opportunity, they have every incentive to take it. And I think that the truth is that that is probably a huge part of the problem, is that there's so much out there. It's not that they're not necessarily happy with, it's not necessarily they don't like their job. It's just that, like, what if something is better? Constantly looking at what is better, maybe on social media, maybe they're seeing it on television, whatever they're thinking there's just maybe something better. And so I don't want to commit to this. And I think that this actually is like such a bigger problem than just in the job space. I think, and I'm not just speaking this to millennials, I'm actually Gen Z. I'm like right at the age of like turning Gen Z. And I think whatever millennials have done, Gen Z typically follows in that lead, and maybe even the statistics get worse as they go. This is not like a party pooper on millennials or Gen Z, because I believe so much in the power of this generation and what God is doing in us. But I do think one thing I could say is probably like an overarching theme of something that we struggle with is commitment. I think that we struggle with commitment when it comes to jobs, and that's why you literally see the statistics don't lie, that we are a job hopping generation. We're having a hard time committing to a job and staying planted where we're at. But then also you see this in the family dynamic. People are way less likely nowadays, and you can read statistics on this as well, to want to get married, to want to have a family, because that is a huge commitment to choose someone to marry. And you see that even with how people date these days. There's so lack of a commitment. There's so much confusion from the lack of a commitment. And I think that, you don't think that your lack of commitment is hurting anyone, but the lack of committing actually causes so much confusion. And it does hurt people, just as we see in this space. The lack of people committing to jobs is actually causing a lot of problems. And this is why I want to talk about this, is because I think that the fear of commitment is actually keeping all of us from the blessing that commitment has to offer. I think that so many in this generation are afraid to commit because the enemy has in some way weaved in our mind that if you commit, you're going to miss out. If you plant yourself, then what if something better comes and you can't get out of it? Commitment is this non-fun thing, right? Commitment is this long-term thing, but actually, yes, commitment. It is long-term, but man, there's so much blessing in the commitment. The fruit really comes from the commitment. The fruit only comes from being planted. And so that's why I think it's so important we talk about this, and that we really uproot that lie that commitment is a bad thing, that commitment is something to run from. No, commitment is something to really step into, because there's power in commitment, aka there is power in planting. So we read this verse about being planted, and the truth is, most of us, I would say, listening to this podcast, you know there's power in being planted. You're like writing that in your notes, maybe there's power in planting, but you already know that. The evidence for that is obvious. Trees grow from being planted. You know that. Flowers grow. Fruit grows. The evidence is there, and the evidence of the planting is enticing, but as exciting as growth is and as enticing as it is, it's also very overwhelming and intimidating to think about being planted yourself. So let's look at this verse again. Who does it say is the blessed person? Who does it say is the blessed person? The person who is planted. Where is the person planted? The person is planted by a stream of living water. What is the person not planting himself around? He's not planting himself around wicked people. He's not walking. He's not being casual about it. He's not standing. He's not like staying in a space, and he's not sitting, literally planting himself and embedding himself in the company of people that he knows will destroy his growth. He's getting away from those people. He's getting away from anything that would stop the growth or destroy the growth on his life. But what he is doing is he's being in the spaces where he knows it's truly going to water his life. It's truly going to bless his life. And where does it say that is? It says by meditating on the word of God day and night. And you can tell that this is really working from him because the fruit is evident. You can tell that meditating on the law day and night is really working, and he's really a blessed man because, man, his leaves don't wither or fade. The fruit's there in every season, in the highs and the lows, in the cold and the warm, through the storm, through it all. He is planted in such an incredible and intentional way that he is always bearing fruit. And that's the power of being planted in the word of God. See, it says it's always prosperous. And guess what? The fruit of the life of the wicked, like I mentioned, is also evident as well, right? It's not non-existent. It says that this person planted by the stream is always prosperous. But guess what? This is the truth of the matter. The fruit of the wicked is obvious too, right? Like I said, it's powerful the other way too. It's very evident as well. The fruit of your life when you're in the company of those who aren't helping you, who are knocking you down, who are taking you the wrong direction, is very obvious as well. And it's obvious because the fruit is non-existent. You don't have fruit. You don't look healthy. The leaves are not green. They're gone, okay? It says it's like chaff that is in the wind. It is useless. It is non-existent. It is not there. There's nothing there that's going to stick. There's nothing there that's going to stay. There's nothing there that is prosperous because it is useless. So the question is, how can I be planted? How can I be planted? I want to be blessed. I want to be prosperous. And I'm going to get to what that really means to be prosperous later. Let me be very clear. I'm not talking about financially blessed. I'm not talking about financially prosperous. I'm talking about prosperous in the things of the Lord and the fruit of who God is. Now, what is that? Well, it says in Galatians, the fruit of God is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. And the truth is, those are the things that we all crave in life, right? Isn't that the thing that we all actually want to be fruitful in? Don't you all crave to have joy? You all crave to have peace. You crave to have love. You want to have self-control over your life, gentleness. Like you want to have these things, and those are the things that come from being planted in the Lord. So how do I become planted? How do I become this person you're talking about? Well, it starts with meditation. It literally says that those who meditate on the word day and night. But here's the kicker. You cannot meditate quickly, which obviously you can't meditate quickly, but so many people, another thing in our generation, we want everything quick. We want it to happen fast. We want to get online and order our lunch and it to be at my house in 20 minutes. I don't care where it's from. We want to be able to get online and get anything as fast as we can because guess what? We can do that because most things in our life, we have the incredible privilege of it actually happening quickly. But meditation and planting yourself and growth does not happen quickly. So what do you have to do? You got to actually commit. To plant yourself to be a tree is actually going to require time. To plant yourself to be a tree that does not wither or fade is going to require even more time. I think we all can agree that we're living in really unique days. The world is changing quickly, fam, and we have to find new ways and creative ways to protect ourselves and our families in the digital age. I'm so thankful for Covenant Eyes. It's an amazing tool that's totally changing the way families approach online safety. Covenant Eyes isn't just another software program. It actually provides accountability and filtering for all your devices, blocking harmful content and fostering healthy online habits. But what sets Covenant Eyes apart is its focus on accountability. So you'll partner with a trusted friend or family member who will receive regular updates on your internet activity, creating a safe place for honest, open communication and support. You know, Christian and I have seen in our own lives that accountability is key in anything that you're facing. And I think the online space is just the space that it can be totally isolating. You're alone whenever you're scrolling. You're alone whenever you're looking. And that's not good for anyone. Nothing, kept in the dark is probably a good thing, right? And so we want to bring other people in. And that's why I love the model that Covenant Eyes goes with. So whether you're a student, a spouse, a pastor, Covenant Eyes empowers you to make wise choices online and stay true to your values. So if you're ready to take control of your online experience and protect what matters the most, then I highly encourage you to check out Covenant Eyes. Visit covenanteyes.com/Sadie and you can try it for free for 30 days. Again, that's covenanteyes.com/Sadie to try it for free for 30 days. So last year, Christian and I moved into our new house, and we actually live in the family neighborhood, which is such a gift that we get to live beside so many members of our family. But one of my favorite things to do is I love to go on walks in our neighborhood. So just about every day I go on a good walk. It just clears my mind. It helps me to feel just so much better about the day and just like focus. But one of the most amazing things about this neighborhood is it is covered in trees. And I love it so much because I love trees. I love looking at trees. I love to just look around at nature, and it just inspires me a lot. But what's really cool is I never really noticed that these trees were pine trees. Like I actually just never took notice of that. But I guess I'm like, yeah, these are pine trees. These are evergreen trees because they always have green on them. They're always covering. They always give us shade, even in the winter. And so I never took much thought into that until my grandpa was actually on this podcast to Papa, and he told me about those trees, or the trees that he actually planted whenever he was going to start a Christmas tree business in 1989. So he's sitting on this podcast, he's telling me this, and I'm like, what? You were going to start a Christmas tree business? And he was like, yeah, me and my friend, we were going to start this Christmas tree business. And he said, I planted these trees and it failed. And I was like, what the world? I had no idea, because my grandpa does a lot of things and he's successful at the things he does, but I never knew about a Christmas tree business, hence that it did fail, because I never even heard about it. But how cool that I have all these trees around me. And so I asked him a little bit more detail on these trees before I came up with this message. And I was like, hey, tell me a little bit more about that tree planting process, because I've been reading about Psalms 1:1-4, and I'm just loving it so much. And it talks about a tree being planted by a stream of living water, and you planted these trees that always have green on them. So tell me about that. And he said, well, yeah, evergreen trees are the trees that even in the winter, they still have the leaves on them, the pine on them, because they're Christmas trees. That's why Christmas trees are so full in December, right? And so he says, we took all of these seeds, several different kinds of evergreen trees, and we planted all the seeds out there. And he said it took 7 years for the seeds to harvest. So my grandpa gets these seeds, him and his friend, they plant these evergreen trees. It takes 7 years to see any harvest from them. They start a Christmas tree business with these trees that took 7 years to grow, and then the business fails. So that doesn't look very prosperous, does it? All of a sudden, after all that time, it failed. But then I was like, you know what is amazing though, is that, like, can you really say that that's a fail when all of a sudden 3 generations under my grandpa live under the shade of the trees that he planted in 1989 out of a failed Christmas tree business experience? I actually don't know if that's much of a fail. That actually is more of an incredible blessing, and I would say prosperous, because what's really cool is when Papa went to cut down all the trees after his Christmas tree business didn't work, he realized that the trees and how they're lined up against the road offer a lot of protection for the neighborhood, because it kind of covers the neighborhood from the main road. And my parents, in the height of Dynasty, when they decided to build their house where they did, said they would have never built there had it not been from the protection and the covering of the trees that lined the road, which were the trees that my grandpa planted. And then years later, I would have never moved where my family moved in that same space, surrounded by the trees that my grandpa planted. And so I got to thinking, man, what an incredible example of, what it looks like to prosper, what it looks like to take intentional time to plant something and to grow something and to see the fruit of something. And yes, it might not look like what you thought it was going to look like, but man, the plans of God are so much better. And so if you're frustrated with the timing of the things that God put on your life, or even frustrated with the outcome, don't give up on it yet, because you never know what it's actually planted for. You never know what those seeds are that you're watering is actually going to, what's actually going to come into fruition as the days to come. And so anyways, we get to live there, and it's such an example of what it looks like to prosper. There's power in being planted. But once again, friends who are listening to this podcast, I don't know so much that I have to convince you that there's power in being planted. I think many of you already know that. I think that's really obvious. But what I do feel like I want to really talk to us about today, and I think the question that maybe we can ask ourselves is, what kind of seeds are we planting? Because we know it's powerful to be planted. We know good things come from it, but what seeds are we planting? Because to be honest, we have a generation, I think, who are more interested in planting seeds that impress people than seeds that are actually prosperous. And there is a big difference in seeds that impress people and seeds that are prosperous. Now, there's one thing that's really important to note, that things that are impressive also take time to plant as well. So again, planting takes time no matter what. There's power in it no matter what, whether it's for good or for bad. So let me put it this way. A rose is an impressive flower, is it not? I mean, if it's Valentine's Day and Christian gives me a rose, I'm impressed, I am thankful, I receive that rose. But at the same time, to grow a rose, it's going to be timely. If he was going to actually grow that rose, it would take about 6 weeks for him to do that. And then, if he was actually going to grow a rose bush, like for our house, it would also take time to do that. It would take about 3 years if he was going to put all the time into it. But here's the difference in the things that are impressive and the things that prosper. If I go pick the rose, right? And now I have this beautiful rose in my house and I have it in a vase of water. Well, how long is that rose going to last? Probably about 5 days. If I'm lucky, if it's by the sun, if I'm watering it with the flower water, maybe it'll last a week or two. So it doesn't last long, But, say, okay, I put all this time into a rose bush, right? Okay, the rose bush is going to last a lot longer. The rose bush could actually last up until about 35 years, which is impressive, but also it's seasonal. When the winter comes, those roses are not going to be there. They are not going to be thriving. It's going to be good sometimes and it's not. And then even though it lasts a long time, it's still only going to last about half my life. Why do I say that? Because I think a lot of times when it comes to the things of God and even the church, I think sometimes we plant these seeds and we don't realize that the seeds we're planting were really only to impress other people or really to just check a box off the list. And so we're like, man, we're going to church, plant the seeds of church. We're listening to worship music, plant those little seeds. We're listening to podcasts, like we're trying to grow ourselves. And then we're frustrated by when the wind comes, all of a sudden the flowers go, all of a sudden the fruit falls, all of a sudden the leaves, and we're frustrated. We're saying, why don't I actually have fruit that's sustaining me? Why don't I actually have the things that matter? Whenever I was planning time into that, I was checking the box of Sunday service. I was checking the box of, listening to the podcast. I was checking the box of reading my Bible app or whatever it was. But for some reason, I threw the seeds out, but I wasn't planted in a relationship with the Lord. And those seeds, man, like I said, they can last you for a time, but when the wind comes, the wind is going to tell you what kind of seeds you planted. The wind is going to expose the kind of seeds that you planted in the ground and the way that you watered the soil underneath it. And so I think about that for people because I'm like, man, you want to make sure that you're not just planting impressive seeds. You want to make sure you're not just planting the seeds for other people to see what you're doing or for you to even pat yourself on the back, but you're really planting seeds that are going to last, that are going to actually be able to withstand some wind, that are actually going to be able to go through the seasons of life that's going to throw at you. And at the end of the day, at the end of your life, say you lived to 95 years old, you look down and you look at your life and you say, man, I am anchored in the hope I have in heaven, and I have generations behind me who love the Lord. That's like water in the ground, right? That's like growing some real roots. Now, let me tell you, there's a huge difference, like I said, in impressive and prosperous. Evergreen trees are not impressive. Like they don't grow impressive things. There's not like a lot of beauty that come off of them. Like you're not going to see like these pine trees just start having flowers on them. They're going to have pine cones, right? It's not like the most beautiful thing to the eye. It's not aesthetically pleasing to a generation, but those are the trees that are going to last. Those trees, on the other hand, first of all, is so cool because a pine cone doesn't look impressive. It surely doesn't look as impressive as a rose. If Christian got me a pine cone for Valentine's Day, I'd be like, boy, what the heck? Go back to you missed it. But a pine cone has so much power in it, right? Because a pine cone actually has the seeds in it for the evergreen trees to grow. It can take even 2 months, though, for the wind and the pine cone and all the thing to actually plant the kind of seeds that you actually need to grow an evergreen tree. So it takes time to even plant the thing. Like everything about growing an evergreen tree takes commitment. But man, when that tree is planted and it takes 7 years for that thing to harvest, guess how much it's estimated that it will last? 400 years. So you're talking about the difference in 35 years, half your life maybe, and then generations behind you, right? So I'm just trying to ask you today, like, are you planting impressive seeds in your faith, or are you planting prosperous ones? Are you planting seeds that are going to get you maybe by today, and then the wind comes tomorrow and you're going to fall? Or are you planting seeds that are not only going to get you by, are going to be the strength of your life, the joy that's actually a strength, the peace that surpasses all understanding, the love that makes you know you are loved by God and you have an identity that's anchored, and then that same seed that's going to bless the generations of your life to come. There is a huge difference, friends, in planting impressive ones and planting prosperous seeds in your life. And like I said, the wind will call you out. Taking care of your health isn't always easy, but it should at least be simple. And that's why for several years, we've been drinking AG1, me and Christian. It's just 1 scoop mixed in your water once a day, every day, and it makes you feel so energized and confident. And that is why I keep doing it to hit my health goals. Each serving of AG1 delivers my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre and probiotics, and more. It's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. I really don't like taking a handful of pills. That's been something that has never been easy for me. So I love that AG1 is an all-in-one solution that gives me all the mental and physical benefits without all the hassle. In less than a minute, I can give my body everything it needs for the day in a healthy, sustainable way. Christian and I have been depending daily on AG1 for a long time, and that's because it is the real deal. Our friends and family also happen to love it too. Every scoop of AG1 includes rhodiola and B vitamins for energy support, which I'm super thankful for, and I totally notice the difference, especially chasing Honey and Haven around and doing the work I do. It definitely helps with my energy. And if I ever miss drinking my AG1, I can seriously tell it's that much of a game changer. If you don't have it, you notice it. When you have it, you see such a huge just shift in your energy. So the AG1 travel packs also are so awesome because we are on the road all the time. So we just toss them in, even my purse. Like, they're really small. They're very practical to bring on the road. AG1 can cover all your nutritional bases even whenever you're on the go. So I remember when Christian started drinking AG1 and I didn't think I was going to like it. But as soon as I tried it, I was shocked by how it actually does taste good. Like, I like the taste of it. It was easy to drink. And I'm like, wow, I'm getting all my nutritional needs. And plus, I felt so much better that day. Like, instantly had so much more clarity, focus, felt the energy difference. And at the time, I wasn't drinking caffeine. And so it was like the perfect thing for me to drink and just feel energized throughout the day. So I partnered with AG1 for so long because they make such high quality products that we genuinely look forward to drinking every day. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/whoa. Again, that's drinkag1.com/whoa to check it out today. But the truth is, only when the wind comes are you really going to see the difference, right? I kind of was thinking about this because Caitlin Clark's a hot topic right now. Caitlin Clark is this basketball player who's crushing it. You know, if you saw her college career, she shattered the records, and all of a sudden, everyone's watching basketball. Little girls are watching basketball. Men are watching women's basketball. Like, all of a sudden, women's basketball is the thing to watch because Caitlin Clark is amazing, right? She's impressive, but here's what I want to say about Caitlin Clark. I actually think that she's more than impressive. I think that Caitlin Clark has built something that's going to prosper. And here's why I say that. And here's why it's important to say that. Because Caitlin Clark was like the GOAT of college basketball. Everyone loves her. My whole Facebook, my TikTok, my Instagram, I see Caitlin Clark everywhere. Even on my news app, it's what Caitlin Clark's wearing, what Caitlin Clark's doing, her last impressive stat. Well, then she gets drafted to the WNBA and she goes on to play in the WNBA. Well, her very first game, many of you saw, was not so impressive, right? She had 10 turnovers, and it was like the most ever in the WNBA for someone to start and have like the worst turnover ever. And so then all of a sudden, I went from seeing all the amazing things about Caitlin Clark on social media to then seeing Caitlin Clark, 10 turnovers, worst start of NBA history, and she's not all she's cracked up to be, and it's these horrible, candid shots of her like holding up her sad face and 10 fingers, and I'm like, man, the wind blows, man. Like, the wind is gonna blow. Like, she is the most impressive person everyone's talking about, and then next week, people are like, oh, worst ever, like, forget that, the wind blows. But here's the thing about Caitlin Clark. She's more than impressive. She built something that's going to be able to last when the wind blows, because I'm telling you, that girl didn't set out to be the greatest basketball player for Instagram to know about. She set out to be the greatest basketball player, period. So she's sitting there practicing all the shots that she shot in her life, all the time she stayed extra for practice, all the time she woke up early, all the time she hit those workouts. She was building something to prosper. She wasn't building something to impress. And so Caitlin Clark is going to continue her basketball career. She's going to be fine even though the wind blew. And so you just want to make sure you're not doing something that's just going to set you up for 15 seconds of fame, because when the wind blows, you're not going to be able to withstand it, and the wind is going to blow. Machu Picchu is another great example of this. Machu Picchu is impressive, don't get me wrong, incredibly impressive. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world because it's so impressive. But man, it was built to prosper, because archaeologists and all these people who have visited Machu Picchu to study just how impressive this place is has said that the most impressive thing about Machu Picchu is actually that 60% of what is built is underground. No one even sees it. No one even knows about what they built underground, but that's actually the thing that makes it prosperous. And now millions of people, visit Machu Picchu every year to just wonder at how amazing of a place this is. If you haven't seen Machu Picchu, look it up. It really is a wonder that they built this entire city up in this mountain before they had the technology and the resources to be able to do that. And that place is actually built on a fault line. It's built on a place where earthquakes happen, where storms happen, where hurricanes happen, and the city has never fallen. Why? Because the most impressive thing about it is underground, because 60% of it, more than half, was underground. That's building something that prospers, that doesn't just impress. But here's the thing. See, the thing about being planted that is so unattractive, it's so unattractive to a generation who loves things like social media and being seen, is that to be planted, you have to be buried. I mean, that's the hardest part, right? That's the kicker. To be planted, you have to be buried. See, I just about sold you on being planted until I reminded you that you have to be buried. Being buried is not impressive. Being buried is not fun. Being buried is not cool. Being buried, in complete honesty, can I even say this on a podcast? It sucks. It's dark. It's lonely. It's hard. It feels longer than it should be. But man, being buried is essential. Being buried is a part of the process. And it's actually when you're buried that you get anchored, right? You get anchored to the soil, you get anchored to the ground. It's where everything begins. If you read the Bible, if you're familiar with the story of Joseph, Joseph is an incredible example of what it looks like to really be buried. The place that looked like death was really the start of the destiny over his life. Joseph was this kid, 17 years old, and he starts having these dreams that he's going to reign over his whole family. So he has a seed. There's a dream. I'm a dreamer. I'm going to reign over my family. I'm going to reign over, I'm going to have some kind of power, some kind of authority. Well, his brothers didn't really like that idea so much. And so his brothers threw him into a pit. So literally buried, he's under the ground. He's in a pit. And then it gets worse. He's sold into slavery. He is now working as a slave in Potiphar's house. But talk about prosperous is amazing, because again, this is not financial prosper. This is not prosper on the outside, but man, prospering in the space that you're in. It says that everywhere that he went, God made him a successful man. God put blessing and favor over his life. So even whenever he was a slave, it's amazing. He was in charge of the whole household. So he had such incredible favor no matter where he was at in his life. Now, don't get me wrong, still buried. Right? Still not the plan, still not the vision, still not that seed of, oh man, we're going to have some kind of authority. I didn't think it was going to be that, right? Well, then things get worse. He's now then thrown into prison because of a misunderstanding and someone completely just tarnishing his reputation. So now he's thrown into prison. So again, buried again, underground in a prison cell. And while he's in prison, he starts interpreting people's dreams. Now, this is so good, y'all, because to be honest, a lot of times the thing that gets you buried is the thing you get bitter about. Right? Because this seed was supposed to be prosperous. This seed was supposed to give him authority. And now all of a sudden, this seed of being a dreamer has got him thrown into a pit, sold by his brothers into slavery, now in a prison. And yet still, he didn't get bitter, right? He didn't get bitter. I think, bitterness, man, I talk about some roots. You can grow some bitter roots, but he didn't get bitter about the fact that God made him a dreamer. He leaned into it. He leaned into it even whenever he was buried. And he began interpreting dreams dreams in the prison. And then what happened? This is 13 years, by the way. Time goes by. Pharaoh, who is in charge of all of Egypt, is like having these weird dreams, and he needs someone to interpret the dreams. And someone who was with Joseph previously in the prison, who Joseph interpreted his dream, tells Pharaoh, "Oh, do you know who Joseph is? There's a dreamer in the prison." And Pharaoh says, "There's a dreamer in the prison. Get him out of the prison. Get him out of the pit and tell him to come to me." So Joseph comes to him and he says, "In the name of the Lord, I will be able to interpret your dream." So basically he says, God has given me this gift, and in his glory and in his name, I will interpret your dream. And then Joseph does it. So the very thing that got Joseph thrown into the pit, being a dreamer, is the very thing that gets him out of the pit, being a dreamer. But it took 13 years. 13 years for him to actually come into the fruition of what that seed was all about, of what that seed was planted for. And so, man, there could have been so many times that he was like, God, yeah, right, that, you gave me those dreams. Why would you give me that dream? And then why would I be here? Yeah, so what? Like, as if you're faithful, God, as if you're good. If you were good, if you were faithful, I wouldn't be here. Because it's normally when you're in the pit, it's normally whenever you're under, that you start doubting the goodness of God. You start doubting the faithfulness of God. But man, that's not the time to start doubting. That's the time to become anchored to the heart of God, to become anchored and tethered to the word of God, to understand his heart, so that when you get into those elevated spaces, man, all the glory is for him. When he was able to interpret that dream for Pharaoh, he was able to give glory to who it was due. So that's what it looks like to prosper. That's what it looks like to actually grow a tree that is an evergreen tree, that man, in all it does and prospers. But here's the good thing about God and the spiritual analogy. It's better than an evergreen tree because it actually does grow beautiful things too. It grows fruit. It grows flowers. It grows life. It grows beauty. People all of a sudden see you and they can come to you and they can receive from even you because you've grown something that can give to others. Man, you've grown something that can even give life to other people. Man, there's so much power in being planted, but don't throw in the towel when it looks dark. Don't throw in the towel when it looks confusing. Don't throw in the towel whenever you get embarrassed about the fact that you thought it was going to be one way and it was another thing. Man, don't get embarrassed. Don't get mad at God. Don't get depressed because, man, God has you there. Being buried is part of the process. Things take time. Don't believe the lie of a generation that says if it doesn't happen fast, then it wasn't a God thing. If it doesn't happen fast, then it wasn't a good thing. Man, not many God things happen fast. Not many great things happen quickly. Not many things that actually have longevity to them are able to be built fast. That would be like an oxymoron. How is it going to have longevity if you just threw it out there? I remember whenever I was a kid, I used to love eating apples and then planting my apple seeds. And I remember I would just go out and I would plant my apple seed and I would water it. And then the next day I would be like, oh, shoot, I don't know where I planted that yesterday. So I'd be like, okay, I got to go eat another apple. So I'd eat another apple and then I'd plant those seeds. And I never marked where I was planting these seeds. And so I never consistently watered any of those seeds because I never remembered where I threw them or where I planted them. So I would eat another one and then I'd plant that one. And guess what? I never one time grew an apple tree. Shocker, right? I never did. But every day I would go out, and this is a child, I'm a kid, so I'm expecting to see an apple tree start growing. But the apple tree was not going to come, right? Because I was not tending to the seeds. I was not giving it the time it needed. And I think in the same way, we kind of do that. We go out and we're planting all these seeds and we're throwing out all these ideas but we're not taking the time to be intentional about any of them. And we have this expectation that there should be an apple tree, but there's not going to be an apple tree because I didn't tend to it, because I wasn't intentional with it. And then we get mad at God that the apples aren't there, that the tree's not there, because surely God's supposed to bless this, right? If God gave us this idea. But no, man, it's not just like, God, you gave me this, now bless it. It's like, no, God, I want to plant with you. I'm going to actually not plant with you. I'm going to plant this in you, God. It's all in your name. It's all in your timing. It's all for your glory. And so don't believe this lie that it has to happen fast. Don't get embarrassed by the whole thing, because here's the thing. I mean, you look at Joseph's story. That would have been a time that he could have doubted God, but like that was the whole thing God was setting up, because then Joseph got to be second in command in Egypt, and the family of him got to truly be blessed. Like he was in charge, that it all came to fruition. That's just a part of God's character, that God was in that whole thing. But then if you're a believer in Christ, especially, don't be embarrassed when you're buried, because like Jesus was buried. Jesus was literally buried. Like he died. He literally died on the cross and was buried in the tomb. But is that not the place, the starting place of the whole shebang? Like the whole thing that we're talking about is the fact that he once was dead and now he's alive. The thing that makes the resurrection powerful is that he was dead, right? Is that he came back to life. And then that started all of us being invited into that. Talk about something that's generational, generations to come. We have the hope of heaven, the hope of what he did on the cross, and coming back to life. And so I would just say that to say, man, if you're buried, don't be like, this can't be God. That's very much in the nature of who God is. That's very much on brand, on theme for the whole story of the Bible. You know, I was thinking about just getting to do the K-Love Awards this weekend and getting to host something. And many of you guys know that I was on Dancing with the Stars, which was an amazing opportunity. And it really obviously elevated and expedited the process of my platform growing. And so this is something that did happen fast. Like all of a sudden, overnight, basically, I had 1 million followers. In a month's time, my platform had grown so much. And then I started getting all this opportunity come at me. Like from Dancing with the Stars, it opened up the door to have meetings with people that I never thought I would be able to have meetings with, just movie producers and different things. And I remember people telling me, like, you're the next this person, you're the next this person. And to be honest, I do remember having this feeling like that kind of scared me, because the people they were referencing have really impressive lives, don't get me wrong, but not the kind of life that I saw myself wanting or desiring. I think to them, saying those names to me, it was supposed to make me go like, yes, because they're so famous and because they are super successful. But like in my mind, I knew my idea of like where I want to be later in life is I want to have a family. I want to be married. I want to have kids. I knew that wasn't necessarily what I wanted, but then I was like, well, maybe I can kind of have both, right? So then I started getting like offered all of these really incredible opportunities. Like I remember I was with a movie casting agent one time who invited me into his office, and he basically was just like, here is the part in this huge movie. I'm talking box office. Like I saw that movie in theaters because I was excited about even seeing the movie. And I had to say no to the part that he offered me because it so did not align with my morals. And I remember my agents being like, are you crazy? Like, you just ruined it. Like, you just ruined it. Like, you're never gonna, like, people are not gonna keep offering you parts if you're gonna say no to ones like this, like these obvious things to say yes to. And I was just like, that's just not what I wanted to do. But I remember, like, it's easy now to be like, yeah, I just didn't want to or whatever. But, like, that was hard. Like, it was hard because I really did feel like I was kind of, like, losing the opportunities that I was gonna have. And I really thought, like, me saying no to those things was basically saying no to like everything on camera, everything in TV, everything in movies, like all of that world. And honestly, like it did kind of feel like a death to something. It felt like a death to a dream because I do feel like God put something in me that does come alive on camera, that enjoys acting, that enjoys just the art of acting and the art of hosting and being in front of a camera, but it just kind of felt like, God, you put that in me, but none of this is working out. Like it doesn't align with who you've also created me to be. It doesn't also align with who you've called me to be. So it felt like weird that felt like it was dying, but it also felt like it needed to, like it had to. And so I said no to all these opportunities. And then God really got a hold of my heart. And gosh, like I became so like deep in my faith. I finally understood what the Holy Spirit meant and like how the Holy Spirit actually is like our helper and lives within me. So it's not just like a faith I have, it's like a faith that's in me and is activated in me. And it was during that time that I started journaling about Live Original and what it would look like to create live events to meet people that follow me. And I started talking about, man, God, you've given me this platform and I want to use it for your glory. Like, I don't want to grow something in my name. I want to grow something in your name. And I started thinking about how, like, if I'm going to say words on a camera, then I want to say words that matter. I want to say words that impact people. Like, I actually want to do something impactful that matters, that's everlasting. And I truly thought, whenever I do this, when I go full on ministry, I'm going to lose all my followers, like, which is totally fine because it's not what I'm doing things for. I thought it was like going to go, that was all going to be closed off, like the camera side of things, the entertainment side of things, the influencer-ish side of things. But to my surprise, it didn't. I mean, over the past, 10 years, I think I've gained, millions of followers. Not that it matters for the sake of fame, but for the glory of God, I think it's really powerful and really profound. Christian asked me the other day, do I think I would have more of a following if I went the other direction? And I said, on paper, yes. Like, I think I would have a lot more followers had I gone the route that path was taking me. Had I posted the pictures that other girls post, had I said yes to the movies and the opportunities I was asked to be a part of, I think I would have more followers in number, but I don't think I would have close to the impact that I've been able to be a part of making in people's lives. And that was the thing that I knew would be, in my mind, prosperous, in my mind, successful. And so saying no to one thing, saying no to planting the seeds that impress, I think was saying yes to planting seeds that prosper. Do I have any regrets? No. I have no regrets in saying no to those movies. I'm actually very thankful that I said no, because I am glad that I didn't put myself in the position to have to now be like, okay, that's out there for my kids to see one day. And I'm not very proud of that. And, just to be specific, they were asking me to be in a scene that was to show my entire body. And so, to a lot of people, I think, even though that's not something I don't know that anybody necessarily wants to do, I think people are very willing to do it because of how much further it can take you in numbers of followers or success or money. But that is planting seeds to impress people, that when the wind blows, man, it knocks that all down, And so, like, I want to plant seeds that prosper. Did I do everything perfect and right? No. I made so many mistakes along the way, just as we all do, because we're human. But that is one example in my life that, man, I look back and 10 years later, I feel like I planted the right tree. I watered the right ground. And so you might be in this position right now where you're planting some seeds. Like, make sure you're planting the ones that matter. If you need to prune the tree because you planted some bad ones, if you need to get some weeds out of the ground, that's okay too. It's never too late to plant a new garden, but be intentional about the new spaces that you're stepping into and the ones that are actually going to prosper. And what's cool is, even though you say no to one thing and you think that dream died, God has a way of bringing things back. If God put it in you, just like Joseph, 13 years later, he brought it back. And for me, that was 10 years ago. And I actually right now, this is private. I haven't shared this with anybody, but I actually have a movie opportunity and it's still in the works. I don't know if it's all going to pan out, but I just think it's just God's goodness that I would even have another opportunity like this, a movie that is fully in line with my morals, that I would get to step into acting again, or even hosting the Caleb Awards, hosting an award show, like something that I thought, okay, if I don't go that route, where am I ever going to like host something like that? But I got to do something at the Grand Ole Opry. And like, no, it doesn't always turn out like that. I think God has a way of doing that, and most of the time, because God is a redemptive God, but don't plan for like what he's going to do in the redemption story. Let the redemption story be on him, because he is great at writing them. So big or small, redemption is redemption, and it's powerful. But I say that to say it is really cool, because I thought that died. I thought that was buried. But man, the seeds have been watered this whole time. The ground has, the soil's been good. And so now God can do it with what he wants to do with it, and to step into an opportunity now where maybe I could do that and it be a good thing. Like Joseph, it wasn't the time yet when he was 17, but 13 years later it was. same for me, ironically. It wasn't really the time for me when I was 17, but now I'm in this space and maybe it is, And so don't give up on God when it looks dark. That's the time where God works the best. Man, it's in the grave that he resurrected Christ into new life. And in the same way for us, we all get to be resurrected into new life with him. Friends, there's power in being planted. Plant yourself today in the things that matter. And if you're sitting and standing and walking in the wicked, maybe today's the day to stop that, to stop where you're planting there and go create a new garden and water the ground well in the word of God and the things of him. So I love you guys. I hope that you're encouraged by this podcast, and I hope that you actually start planting things that matter, that are going to last for generations to come.